Welcome, everyone. I'm Kelly DuMar. I'm so glad to see you all here tonight for our wonderful Flash Fiction Showcase and Open Mic with Riham Adly and writers from her Transformative Language Arts Network 6-week Flash Fiction writing webinar. It was called Writing from the Subconscious. And Riham has really kindly organized the class, which has ended, her students to come here and read some pieces of Flash fiction to us tonight to engage with the form more deeply and give the writers a chance to showcase the kinds of really fabulous creative work that they were able to do in her 6-week class. And so I think we're going to be really hearing some Flash tonight. And then we have an open mic that follows for some of you who might have signed up who want to read your Flash fiction, even if you weren't in the course, and that'll be terrific too. So we're also going to have a chance after the presenters present and read their work to talk with Riham a little bit more. And perhaps you might have a question for each other, or you might want to have a question for Riham about the process of writing Flash fiction, about her teaching and the way she teaches it. So anything like that, we will have a discussion following. But I want to introduce someone really important here as well at the opening of the evening. Hanne Weedon, who is the Transformative Language Arts Network's managing director. And she's the woman you've probably all heard from behind the scenes, who's helped you get registered for your course or managed 100 million things for you. So I want to go ahead and introduce Hanne in representing the network and say hello to you this evening. Hanne, welcome.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks so much, Kelly. I really am glad to be here. And Riham, what a treat to get to see this event happening with the two of you collaborating this way. Kelly is also on our board of directors and has played this incredible leadership role in really bringing Riham to the Transformative Language Arts Network and supporting her, and along with Katia and a number of other people, just sort of really wanting to figure out how to, Riham, to give you some space to do your stuff. We're just really honored and excited to have you teaching for us and to have this event happening. We're a tiny little nonprofit, and this event is actually a fundraiser, although we're offering it for free. If people would like to donate, I will put a link in the chat afterwards. Any little amount helps. We're a shoestring budget organization, and everything just makes a difference because we want to be able to support our staff, which is me, and our teachers, which is Riham, and you know, we do this amazing work of supporting the people who use language to do social change work in the world. And it's really an honor, and it's really a wonderful thing. I see there's a bunch of other people who are teaching for the network here too. Angie, it's really wonderful to have you here. Angie's been doing some really amazing work around accessibility and disability work and kinds of things. So I'm going to go ahead. Riham is going to be teaching a class starting in the fall, and right now we have an early bird special running. It runs until the class, about 2 weeks before the class, so you get a little discount of like $20 to $40 off of the regular price, depending on whether you're a member or non-member. And so I'm going to go ahead and post that in the chat here. And if you're interested in checking out the class, please do that. And if you have the means to make a contribution to the network, boy, that really would be great. And I'm going to post that in the bottom too. And with all of that, I think that's about what I needed to say. And welcome, and we're just really, really glad to have this event happening. And Riham, we look forward to doing many more wonderful creative showcases of showing our community what do we know how to do, and what are we learning, and what are we trying for. So thank you for doing this experimental project with us, Riham. It's really wonderful to see it happening. Okay.
Thank you, Hanne. All right, I second everything you said. And now let's talk about, I want to introduce Riham and say how grateful I am for her teaching for the network, the quality, the high quality of teaching of this craft topic, really, that also explores the psyche. And I think that makes it a really deep and really unique offering in our roster of courses. And I'm really excited to hear what has been written in the course, as I know you are as well. We feel really fortunate to have Riham reaching us from where she lives in Giza, Egypt, and actually in a totally different time zone that is in tomorrow for us. So amazing stamina that she has. So about Riham, let me just formally introduce her, because I think it's really worth giving you a sense of who she is, where she's coming from, what she's accomplished. Riham Adly is an award-winning fiction writer and editor from Giza, Egypt. In 2013, her story, The Darker Side of the Moon, won the Macon Award. In 2019, she was longlisted in Brilliant Flash Fiction's food theme contest. And in 2020, her story, How to Tell a Story from the Heart in Proper Time, was a winner and was included in the 2020 Best Microfiction Anthology. I'm sure many of you, if you haven't already, will be submitting to Best Microfiction Anthologies in the near future. In 2022, her story, Two Peas in a Pod, won second place in the Strand International Flash Fiction Contest. So you can see that her work is really resonating for an audience. Riham was nominated for the Pushcart in 2019 and was nominated for Best of the Net in 2019, 2020, and 2021. Her flash fiction has appeared in over 60 journals, such as Litro Magazine, Lost Balloon, The Flash Flood, Bending Genres, The Citron Review, The Sunlight Press, Flash Fiction Magazine, Menacing Hedge, Flash Frontier, Flashback, Ellipsis-Zine, Okie Donkey, and New Flash Fiction Review, among others. Riham was the first ever female from Africa and the Middle East to have a debut flash fiction collection published in English. We'll be putting a link into the chat room in case you are not familiar with her collection, Love is Make-Believe, which was published in November 2021 by Clarendon House Publications in the UK. Love is Make-Believe. I'll also put her website address and where you could purchase Love is Make-Believe in the chat room. But for now, I introduce you to Riham Adly, and I'll let her take it from here. Thanks for being here, Riham.
Thank you so much for the introduction and for this wonderful opportunity. I have to say that I'm really proud of the work that the TLAN is pulling together, and I am beyond happy with the work that participants of my class have accomplished. The level of detail and creativity in the stories is simply inspiring. I've taught my workshop Writing from the Subconscious, and I believe Flash was the best medium to explore such a really important topic. Most of us go about our lives without really realizing what's going on deep there in the psyche, following certain patterns, certain polarities, not really understanding what's going on. We come through life with a lot of package, with a lot of dis-ease, and we sort of run in circles, and our lives become puzzles that are really hard to figure out. Writing from the subconscious, I decided to use Flash as the medium because Flash explores a moment in time, and basically life is just a series of moments. If you're not able to live each moment in the here and now, I don't think that you're really living. And using that in a written form, storytelling, is very liberating. We have touched base with important topics that helped us and helped the participants really, aside from the craft part and the storytelling part, help them explore themselves. We've touched base on polarity and the shadow side, what it means to use a perspective with a certain polarity, and what happens when you do unlock your shadow side and realize what's going on, how that would affect the character's perspective. We discovered childhood attachment patterns and how these patterns basically shape our lives. We keep running in circles with those patterns. And later on, we explored plot, and in plot, I decided to explore defense mechanisms and coping mechanisms. Basically, a character yearns, a character goes through a conflict, and part of that happens, the dynamic of that happens through their own way of handling life. And we also use colors in order to, through metaphor, in order to also add meaning to the felt sensation and the felt experience in our life. And eventually in setting, we explored dream symbols in setting. I wanted my students to, experience setting from a dreamlike perspective. Without further ado, I would love to start. I would like to start showcasing beautiful pieces that were produced in this amazing workshop. It was an amazing experience for myself, not just as a teacher, but I was also able to learn a lot from the work presented during the course. I would like to start with one of my favorite students, to be honest. They're all my favorites, but Kimberly is quite unique, and I would like to introduce her bio, and we would listen to her piece. Kimberly is a puppeteer and a teaching artist based in Rhode Island. Her work combines various puppet styles and integrates her skill in music and visual art. She has been exploring flash fiction, its brevity and pure essence of story, and its parallel to puppetry. A puppet communicates through gesture, only essential gestures, nothing extraneous. Move the story forward. Likewise, the flash writer must choose each word intentionally to tell a story. Kimberly is currently creating a new piece that purposely combines flash and puppetry. Kimberly.
Thank you. My piece is called Walking on Eggshells. Mama always says that homely pigeons can't be choosy, got to settle for what they can get. But I lucked out, got me a good-looking blue jay cock with a fine crest and fancy plumage. I don't know why he chose me to be his mate. Lots of flashy hens out there. He could have had any one. It's true. I hear their seductive coos, see their coquettish tail flicks as they strut past him. Can't help but notice how the corners of his beak curl and how his eyes devour them whole as they pass. I wonder how it feels to be looked at like that. He liked the way she looked at him with adoring eyes when they first met. Made him feel special somehow. She wasn't particularly attractive, but that was okay. He wouldn't want a mate who was better looking, one who could turn more heads than him. Besides, a homely hen doesn't attract cocks, which meant he'd have no competition keeping her undivided attention focused solely on him. He liked that. Until he didn't. Lately, she's been talking about building a nest, settling down, starting a family. He's not the settling kind, likes to roam free, travel the world. Last week, I found a mighty oak, sturdy branches and dense foliage to provide privacy and security. A high rise in an upscale neighborhood, far from the city streets where I grew up. We'll build a humongous nest, one that will hold a big, happy family of chicks and fledglings and grandchildren, and he broods for days, perched all alone in the tall pines. She brings him a few seeds, worms, an occasional grub, tries to console him. What's wrong, sweetie? What can I do to make it better? With a sweep of his wing, he sends the food and her flying, only to be repeated over and over each day. She builds the high-rise nest by herself, grass clippings, moss, a shiny crumpled gum wrapper, and pieces of yarn found in a dumpster, hoping to entice him with a warm, comfy bed. Come home, baby. I'll make you feel better. He nestles by her side, enjoying the warm, comfy bed and her undivided attention. He likes that, until he doesn't. The thought of chicks puts him in a bad mood. It would be the end of lounging, the end of freedom, the end of her undivided attention. Odd and completely unexpected that he offered to sit on the eggs. Take some time for yourself. Go visit your mother. You deserve a break. But you told yourself he was trying to be sweet. He really had changed. He was finally warming to the idea of fatherhood. How does someone accidentally step on an egg? You tell yourself the shell is delicate, easily broken at this early stage of development. But 3 eggs? Well, it is difficult to maneuver in a nest with 3 eggs. And everyone knows how clumsy fathers-to-be can be. Where are the eggs now? Yes, you can imagine how messy that must have been. You tell yourself it was extremely considerate of him to spare you of such a scene, knowing how heartbreaking you'd be. He truly loves you. Of course he is heartbroken, feels terrible, needs a little time to grieve, alone. That is his way. A small red feather stuck in the nest, the humongous nest meant to hold a big happy family. How did the feather of a cardinal find its way into their home?
Oh, wow, Kimberly. This was actually one of the most interesting stories that I've heard. And really, can you please tell us a little bit about this? I remember this was produced after our character lesson, after we discussed the attachment patterns. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, it was the coping mechanisms that we were dealing with.
Yeah.
And so, like a lot of my work, I look at the mundane, the seemingly banal situations and interactions in life. And so this just came about with a brief conversation about a bird in the yard who had built a nest by the front door, and every time someone walked by, the bird got startled and flew away. And my husband made some remark, it's probably intentional, so she doesn't have to have eggs and have a family and be stuck in the nest. So it just, one thing led to another. So that's how I explored it in a lighthearted way.
Kimberly, please tell us what made you decide to try flash fiction and how that ties in with your career as a puppeteer, because what you're doing is basically telling stories in another expressing form. And I just want to see how you see through this, the parallels between this.
I've always been attracted to haiku, just that essential quality, getting right to the pith of the story. And so when I read about flash fiction, it seemed to have that same storytelling in a short form. In my puppetry that I do short form puppetry, and it's exactly that. It's you don't have any extra time or gesture to tell the story. You have to be very succinct and very intentional in every movement that you create to tell the story. And so that's why I was attracted to Flash, and certainly enjoyed your course. And I've been able to go further with it, bridging the two. In fact, I'm starting to collaborate with my 3 daughters on the Flash puppet opera project.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. I would like to see that happen.
So you've opened doors for me. Thank you.
Yes, that's wonderful. And did the course material help you somehow? I mean, we did have a conversation about patterns and how we carry those patterns with us. And after exploring one side of it through childhood, did that somehow affect your viewpoint or make sense of certain things, be it in life or in your storytelling?
It did. You know, studying Jung prior certainly made it more clear, but it, I think the way you made it very expressive and taught us how to dive deeply and yet create art of it was the helpful part for me. You know, you read these things, you study, but until you can make that explicit connection that you helped us do, I was grateful. So.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. I'm so looking forward to that Flash opera. And good luck. Thank you, Kimberly. Next up, we have Valerie Fox. Valerie Fox recently won the fair's Right Words contest for Flash. She's published poetry or brief prose in Juke, Cleaver, Reflex, Okie Donkey, Painted Bride Quarterly, Ellipses, Hanging Loose Across the Margin, and other journals. Her poetry books include The Research Factory, Strawgate, and Insomniac, PS Books. Much interested in collaboration, she really published The Real Sky Artwork Collaboration, a limited edition handmade book with artist Jacqueline Amick. She teaches at Drexel University in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Valerie.
Thank you. Thank you, Riham,
Hello.
so much. Great to see everybody. The class was really incredible, and it's really fun to see everybody here. I'm reading the piece I wrote called You Didn't Know There Was a Storm Until It Was Too Late. And in this story, I used 3 different points of view. So the lesson had to do with exploring different points of view to tell similar, the same story or related stories. I didn't know there was a storm until it was too late. I was scanning the horizon, searching the mountains for a sign of the regiments, and I hardly noticed that the crops had blown away, and the contraption I always wear to make me forget my nightmares must have fallen off as I slept. and I wake up, not exactly underwater. That would have been fine, but I wake up struggling with the sheets and nauseated, and my brief husband, Eugene, is there again, and this is all his fault, as he must have allowed the contraption I was wearing to come undone. He is sleeping soundly, as usual, worn out from last night's drinking with the birders. So I call up my sister Morgana. She's a psychic, and she says, was I there? Was I in your thoughts, in your dream? A watery wave gurgles up from my gut, and I remember her who it is, and I remind her who it is that she is talking to, her own flesh and blood. And no, she was not in my dream, but another ghost was, a stain shaped like a landlocked country. And if only there was a talkative crow nearby to help, I might be able to turn this vessel around, but there isn't. And that's when I notice how the surrounding radiant sky has a fixed skin-like endpoint, and I am enveloped in my weird little bubble, entirely apart from the rest of our shady town. I have noticed this before, but I am still surprised. And I wonder what the other side of town is like, their sunny squares and their hubs, animated like the pages in my library, where people feel content to be, if not live. The view from the turret. You adore birds. You love to drink Prosecco. You loved Eugene once. You tend to a few rose bushes, like your Nana. Well, not like her. She was good at it. You miss your sister, Morgana. She used to always be there by your side. You took her for granted. You look up. There's a surface. There's a boat. You crack a tooth, wolfing down popcorn. You get up and go outside. At night, it's almost like being back on the deteriorating farm. There's a lot of light and noise, but a stillness of sorts, like the natural world still offers its respite, even here in this quarter. It has sweat. This world has death, a strong impulse to replicate. It weeps when you expect it to laugh, and laughs when you expect it to cry. You ought to practice your breathing in this higher altitude. You should flutter your arms to keep the circulation going of the blood. You should call your mother. Some know-it-all will repeat that last directive about calling your mother, like it's their right to. And part 3, prequel. My sister and I scan the horizon. Our crops have blown away. We are just trying to keep up with our years, and we get into some long conversations with our animals and with each other about how things work, things that bug us. And we hear a baby crying, or is it a fox? That's when the storm enters our view. It's marching and returning steadily from the east, and we can almost know what the other is thinking. One takes the hand and pulls the other into the basement closet, more room than a closet. It has a few old tools, a washboard, a woolen stocking cap, a checkered bonnet, a pocket dictionary, our collected rocks that have their own names, many dog-eared romance novels. But these objects retreat just beyond the grasp of our rememberings. Words once loud, now fading. Perhaps we're just falling asleep. It's stuffy in here, with no one to pat our backs as we nod off. We have the same sty growing in our left eyes, limiting our ability to concentrate. Yes, it hurts. We have not seen our mother for ages, and we mean ages. All the old geezers whisper, she ran off. And we're just little kids, but are expected to carry our weight and help with the farm labor by hand. It's very time consuming, so we get used to rising early, which as a lifelong habit is advantageous. We don't know that yet.
Tell me a little bit about the process. I know this exercise wasn't exactly the easiest during this course. The whole purpose of it is to explore the concept of polarity, how sometimes we get trapped in one perspective, seeing the word in one certain way, either from the first person I, which always lives trapped in a certain perspective, and then the you, where you could get outside yourself a little bit, and then the we, which is there to help integrate. So tell me about the process of how did that piece come out? Did you struggle a little bit to shift and transition those perspectives?
Oh, thanks. I struggled a little, but it was so useful because I think I use I a lot. I use you a lot, and the I tends to have this kind of cutesy. I mean, if I'm not careful, it becomes a little cutesy, like a minimizing, you know. So I think what you said about the you being more interior made me make the whole thing a little more serious in a way. And also, I know you had some really helpful advice for me about how when I was with the we part, it helped me to sort of create a, I mean, maybe a resolution might be too strong a word of it, but to sort of see things coming together, if that makes sense. So it helped me to see the nature, like even though the stories kind of the two sisters kind of overlap, the we really helped me to sort of see what their relationship was truly like.
Valerie, you come from a poetry background. What made you decide to get into Flash? And I've always said that Flash is somehow, you know, like the poem, a short story, there's so much similarity. Tell us a little bit about that.
I think it's a couple of different things. I mean, I think a lot of what I had started writing about 10 years ago was narrative poetry and fictional. It was that more persona poetry. And I think I found it felt like fiction to me. And I liked when people realized it was fiction. So I was already using prose. Actually, for the last even 15 years, I was mostly even writing poetry and prose. I find the audience is very open-minded. You know, it's ironic in a way, or unexpected in a way, because with poetry, kind of anything goes, right? But I find the Flash readers, they're very open-minded. They really go with it, you know. I love that about the Flash community. So I think it's actually connected with community as much as with the genre itself, because the genres overlap.
Yes, that's true. Thank you, Valerie. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Coming next up is Judy Ford Brennan, story meddler, an enthusiastic supporter of the TLAN. She's an award-winning author and playwright, occasional poet, and longtime writing coach with expertise in helping writers who have interesting neurologies. Her short work, most of which is still longer than Flash, has appeared in everything from literary magazines to wayside signs, museum exhibits. Oh, wow. Her longer work includes the award-winning book, Electric Lemons, Interpretation and the Art of Writing, and the play Dracula and the Writing Coach, winner of the Tribe Media Audience Choice Award, Best Theater. For more information, you can visit Judy's website, greenfirecreative.com. Judy.
Thanks, Riham.
It's so good to have you back.
Thank you. Thank you. Looking forward to this and having fun, and so much enjoying hearing everybody's pieces again. So this is called All My Eyes Are on You. Yeah, everybody says moms have eyes in the backs of their heads, but I tell you what, I got them everywhere. They circle around my head like a headband. There's one at the base of my neck, right there where that big knob of your spine is. It's called C7. You can look it up. Yeah, where you shudder, you know, like a shiver runs up your spine. I have eyes in my ears too. They help with translation. Like, you know, when you're on the phone and you can't see the person you're talking to. Sure, the extra eyes add a little weight to my head, but I can handle it. My hands and feet too, plus a couple between my shoulder blades, one on the back of my left knee and one on the front of my right. I don't need those ones as much anymore, but they've been there a long time, ever since I was 10, maybe 11. Got more when I got older, you know, the way you do when you grow. Nobody noticed, at least nobody said anything. And it weren't until I had a kid of my own that I figured out what they was for. I mean, that I learned that they were for more than just me, the keep and watch of things, you know? So my kid was 7, maybe 8, and he'd been having serious bad times at school. Nobody liked him, not even the teachers, who got extra mad when he'd tell them they was wrong about something, even though he could quote where he got his deets, you know? Ha, they hate that, don't they? Still cracks me up to think about it. But it was bad, real bad. And the guy who ran the school said I could either take my kid to see this therapist or take him out of school. So, okay, I take him to the therapist. And this therapist is a real dickwad, you know? The kind of dude who thinks just because you had hard times as a kid, you must be a bad mom. Never even occurs to the fool that if you growed up in that kind of world, you for sure know what bad moms and bad dads are. And you for sure know you're not going to raise your own kid like that. No way, Jose. And you took all them parenting classes and read all them books and stuff way before you had your kid. But that therapist don't even ask about that. Don't want to hear it. He's got it all figured out, yeah? That fool told me, well, we let that go because it don't matter. He was wrong. Reason I know is because all rest of that day and the next, my kid is like a wet dish rag, worse than moping. I know something's really wrong. And all my eyes open and watching everything everywhere. I sit down on the big sofa in the living room, my kid hunched up at one end like he gone disappear in the corner behind the cushions, and his face all cave in like. And I sit close, but not too close, because my kid, he get prickly sometimes, can't stand being touched. Skin gets all prickly like. His dad and me both know what that's like. We know not to invade. That's what it feels like, invade. And I say to my kid real quiet like, hey babe, what's going on? And he says he wants to get a rifle like the ones in the Bugs Bunny cartoons and shoot himself because the problems are so big and so awful. And he looks at me to see what I will do, and his eyes are wide open and that perfect blend of green and brown that makes gold hazel like nobody else has. And those eyes are filled with more hurt than any child should ever have. And I feel all my extra eyes wanting to close tight to block out the sight of so much hurt, but I do not close any of them. I keep them all wide open, and I lean close to him and I say, oh, honey, we don't get rid of the person, we get rid of the problems. Oh, honey, I say, there is no problem so big or so scary that we cannot get rid of it. You are not a problem. You are never a problem. And the stuff that's so hard right now, that's a solvable problem. All my eyes blink, one right after the other, when I say solvable problem. And that's when I know I will use that phrase, solvable problem, every day for our entire lives, which turns out to be true. And wouldn't you know it, my mom, the grandmother of my one and only precious child, that idiot woman sends him a Swiss Army knife for his birthday present not 2 weeks later. I call her on the phone and ask her direct, what the hell? Did you not understand what I told you about? And I say the next words real clear so there's no chance of misunderstanding. Suicide ideation? And she said, well, it don't matter what she said because she wrong, again wrong, always that woman wrong. No eyes except for the regular two, and even those two usually closed. Fool woman. I like to say she mean well, but I don't really believe that. How can you mean well if you keep all your eyes closed all the time? But that's a separate deal. We talk about that another day. Today, here's the thing. You got them eyes now yourself. You don't have to worry none, long as you keep your eyes open. It's gonna be okay. We all gonna help watch too. You not alone in this, you not.
Wonderful piece, Judy. Wow, that was quite theatrical. Amazing piece. Remember, Judy, when we discussed in lesson 1, the core emotion, discovering the core emotion of our pieces. And after that, we delved into the structure. Can you tell us about the core emotion of this wonderful piece? I mean, it is quite fascinating with the concept of the eyes.
I don't know if I can discuss it clearly, but I will make an attempt. For me personally, the core emotion of this is rage. What I find intriguing about it is that the character here is basically relating her rage and her intense protectiveness of her child, and then turning that at the end to say, look, we are in this together. We can, I have enough anger to share. We can solve the problem, whatever the problem is to the person she's talking to. And for me, this came out of the 4th week, when the content for the 4th week in the course is about defense mechanisms. And so for me, that actually was this really interesting sort of stretch in a way, because although I really am fascinated by how our brains present stuff to us, I was also very aware of how defensive I was about that, partly because I have strongly held opinions about psychoanalysis, but also just because when I started to write this piece, I knew what the core incident was that I wanted to talk about, or that I wanted to figure out how to put in a story. And I kept starting it and it didn't work. And I'd start it again and it wouldn't work. And I had this idea about the eyes with a, like a headband thing bouncing around. And I kept going, no, don't want that. Talk about defensive, right? Anyway, so I finally said, all right, that's what my brain wants. This is supposed to be all of this material. And so I think what happened for me is that I kind of felt like I was channeling some of my West Virginia kinfolk, quite frankly. That's where the dialect comes from, I think. But the anger that I still feel as a mom who was not listened to and who was dealing with a really tough situation in various ways and different things over time, was able to channel in a way that I still get angry about mismanaged stuff. And to be able to channel that through a character who is maybe has that same emotional core, but is not me, and to fictionalize it without losing the core integrity of the experience was really very cool. I don't know that I have done that successfully before. So I don't know, does that answer the question? I get kind of lost when I'm trying to explain
it. Intriguing. I can listen to you forever. Thank you so much, Judy, for being here and for that wonderful piece, memorable piece. Thank you. Thank you. Next up, we have Angie Ebba. Angie Ebba is a queer disabled writer, educator, and performer who has taught writing workshops and performed both online and across the United States. She's a published essayist with a focus on writing about disability and chronic illness, relationships and sexuality, and body positivity. She has poetry published in Closet Cases, Queering Sexual Violence, and several literary magazines, as well as essays in Healthline, Creaky Joints, O School, and more. She believes strongly in the power of words to help us gain a better understanding of ourselves, to build connection and community, and to make personal and social change. Angie can be found online on rebelonpage.com. Angie.
Hey.
Hello.
Hello.
It's so good to have you back.
Yeah, glad to be here. So I'm going to be reading a piece that was off of the same prompt as the piece that Valerie wrote, from the multiple perspectives and point of views. But I've changed it some since I originally wrote it. So yeah, so this is called Sinking. 1. My bed is alluring, but I've grown sick of it. Sick of the tangerine jersey sheets I excitedly picked out a year ago. Sick of the stuffed dinosaur my teenager got me for Christmas. Sick of the satin pillowcase meant to preserve my curls. Sick of its enticing siren song that lures me to it. There is an indentation in the mattress where my body lies, growing deeper by the day, and it irritates me. I pull out my laptop, begin to type depression in mattress into my search engine, and Google tries to autofill. Depression in men versus women, depression in menopause, depression in moms, depression in March. The first article that comes up tells me that too much wear and tear leads to a feeling of sagging. Sagging, it reads, usually occurs in the areas that are exposed to the most pressure. I look down at myself, my breasts drooping underneath a cat hair strewn shirt, my thighs pockmarked with cellulite and striped with stretch marks, the skin on my hands beginning to crinkle like crepe paper, reminding me of the hands of my grandmother. I close the computer, set it on the bedside table, lay back down, sink further. 2. Do you remember the day the fog lifted for the first time? The way it felt like a sheet was pulled back on the world? Do you remember the earth blooming into color, how you could hear the nearby river, taste the pine trees on the air? Just one tiny capsule each morning, peach and white, swallowed down with a swig of oat milk. How did it take so long to get to this point, spending years of life seeing the world in shades of gray? Do you remember looking at the banana slugs sliming their way across the trail, at the mushrooms sprouting from fallen leaves? Do you recall how you kissed your lover under a canopy of Spanish beard moss? Don't you wish you were there now instead of here in your bed? If only dopamine and serotonin and norepinephrine grew as recklessly as the mushrooms had that day, attaching themselves to dying things, to dead things, creating life again. 3. Scientists tell us that beneath the mushrooms are vast networks of tendrils, mycelium stretching miles upon miles, extending, sending messages to other mushrooms using electrical impulses, always growing, always reaching outward, thriving through connection. But that's the thing, isn't it? You and I, we lay alone in our beds, sinking further and further into our depressions, sagging into the weight of the world, solitary beings, secluded and isolated. Even in our own homes, we sit next to each other on the couch, not touching, faces illuminated by the glow of our phones. We pass each other on the way to the bathroom, sit across from each other at the dinner table, excuse ourselves and retire to our own bedrooms where we close the doors and lumber to our sunken mattresses, disconnected, slowly dying. 4. See me, dirt beneath my nails, hair strewn with fallen leaves. See me laying on the black earth. See me sinking. I reach out, keep reaching, until fingers touch another, until souls intertangle, until something beautiful and alive sprouts.
Wonderful. I can definitely feel the emotion in your piece. Angie, you address the issue of chronic illness in your essays and your story, and you teach about that. Do you agree that Flash somehow allows us to live in the here and now, and that perspective-wise, I mean, we did tackle polarity, perspective, and the shadow side, that perhaps a lot of us, I mean, I've suffered from chronic illness for over 4 years, and I've just started recovering, and I've realized that part of the reason why I've been so ill and couldn't really get out of this was my perspective, not living the moment, not living the here and now. Most of us are either trapped in the past and projecting that past on the future and never really living the moment. And perhaps did Flash fiction somehow allow you to take a look at that moment and integrating that change of perspective through that exercise, the I, and then the you, and then the we. Tell us about this.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that I found myself loving the most about flash fiction was the ability to dip in and then out of really intense, big feelings in a really short period of time. And I think that can be really healing, you know, like a piece like this dealing with depression, or, you know, other pieces that are dealing with some of those kind of corporeal things that we live with every day in our bodies. That ability to just like really deep dive quickly and deal with things in a very short period of time. I found that really, really helpful. And definitely this idea of being kind of in the present moment, capturing those snapshots of things. Yeah, that's definitely something that can be taken not only to writing, but also to living.
And were you able to, I mean, before taking Flash, did you ever think about the core emotions in your pieces, or did things just, you just wrote and let it come out the way it is? I mean, does it make a difference having an idea of a core emotion before writing?
Yeah, I think it does make a difference. You know, I think that like when I write poetry, a lot of times I will know the emotions behind it, but it's a lot of times more focused on the language. And it definitely felt like by focusing on the emotion, and especially in an exercise like this, where I was tackling that emotion from different perspectives and from different angles, that really helped to kind of dive into it more and understand it better.
Do you feel that perhaps writing this way, where you really focus on the moment, can help us get out of certain programming? I mean, a lot of us are really reliving a certain pattern, moving in a loop with a stuck narrative, almost like robots. Can writing, I mean, that's what writing is, flash fiction has done to me. It helped me focus on the here and now, on a certain moment, and especially more on some of my recent work. How do you feel about that?
You know, I always think of writing as like meditation, and I think that, you know, a lot of meditation, that's what the point is to get us to the present moment. And so for me, that's just writing, and especially forms like this where they're more brief, that's exactly what that is a meditative practice.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Angie. It was great to have you. Next up, we have Katia own Hage. Katia is currently founder and a publisher at LSR Press, residing in Redlands, California. She lives in a world where everyone is welcomed, stories are heard, and voices find their places in the fabric of life. As an artist, musician, and poet, her inner life has always guided her creative process by fueling it with dreams, spiritual longing, and a drive to experience being touched through family, friends, nature, and places. Katia, hello.
Hi, hello.
Hello, Katia.
How are you? And that's been wonderful so far to listen to everybody again, all the stories. I thought I was on the list for new work, and I didn't know I had to bring in something we did in the class. So what do you want me to do?
Oh, wow. Well, perhaps you can tell us a little bit about the process in the class, how it helped you. How it helped you in terms of storytelling, how it helped you in terms of revisiting your story. Because a lot of the course material, I mean, I designed that so that we could go back to our own narrative, our own story, and then reflect that in our characters. So
yeah, definitely. So I write mostly in poetry, but And I wanted to do a book about the war in Lebanon, where I grew up for 15 years in it. And poetry at some point stopped being a vehicle that could be completely, that I can bring information to the reader of what was going on. And I needed some kind of a short story. And then I found your class and I'm like, maybe flash flash fiction would help with that. And because there's a lot that happens in a war setting, there's a lot that is not spoken. So for me, learning about how to write in flash fiction and taking one thing out of a character and letting it talk about the whole person in a way, like a door to it, that was a perfect vehicle for telling these stories. So it was great. And using colors, and the short form was very important for me because I do not know how to write long at all. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Katia. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Next up, we have Lorette Luzajic. Lorette reads, writes, publishes, edits, and teaches flash fiction and poetry. She is the editor of the Ekbrastic Review, a journal devoted to writing inspired by art. Lorette. Hello, Lorette.
Hi, Riham. Hi, everyone. So nice to see all of you tonight.
So what are you going to be reading today?
So this is one I read before in this workshop because the only one that I haven't read was the spaceship one. So I'm not sure that that is finished. What do you think, Riham? Should I go for the space one or the lady with the pictures one?
Oh, the lady with the pictures one was amazing. I remember that too.
All right. So this one is called Kenophobia. She was everywhere. You couldn't escape those eyes, the wide moon of her face or the creamy cleft spilling from her scoop or keyhole necklines. I was astonished to enter her home and find that the countless framed photographs crowding every inch of wall space were all of her. I was there as a representative for the auction house I worked with. All I knew was that Luda was a classical music composer, and she claimed to have an original Ivan Aivazovsky seascape that she wanted to consign. I saw no sign of art collection, but there were Russian artifacts, fabrics, and dishes. Sit down, she said, sweeping her grenadine talons across a seat of fading damask to clear a space for me between stacks of albums. As she bustled about in the kitchen making tea, I leafed through one of the folios and saw it was also full of Ludmila. Polaroids, fuzzy old Kodaks, contact sheets with pose after pose and nothing crossed out. Luda, blowing glossy kisses at the camera. Luda, waving from balconies, gardens, small boats. Luda in summer dresses, hair piled high. Luda, thighs stuffed into pantyhose, head back, hips forward, legs parted, coy eyes. Luda returned with a beautiful cobalt blue teapot, steaming her oversized glasses. She smiled when she saw me looking at her. She wasn't the slightest bit embarrassed that I had found the mawkish, suggestive pictures. Oh, how time goes by, she said. Look, wasn't I beautiful? She squeezed some lemon into my tea, then handed me a plate with a mound of snowball biscuits. I took a few. They were nutty and sweet. Later, I had to tell my husband about it. She can't resist herself, I said. When I was leafing through her photographs, she had to see them too. She had this glazed, satisfied expression, almost as if she was looking at old pictures of a lover. Dave munched nonchalantly on an apple. I loved sharing my daily conundrums with him. He always had an interesting explanation to offer up a possibility. Her face lights up when she passes a mirror, I explained. The whole place is like a shrine to Ludmila. Dave asked a few questions about the time frame of her Soviet childhood when she came here. I didn't know enough about her to say. Maybe she worships herself because they weren't allowed to worship anyone else, he said. When I told him about the floor to ceiling snapshots, hanged or pinned or taped, plastered in the bedroom and hallway, stuck to the fridge, with Luda in this sweater and that one, he had another idea. It sounds like kenophobia, he said, a fear of blank spaces, or more officially, a fear of emptiness. In art, the concept was called horror vacui. Something had to occupy every available space. It was kind of like hoarding, I said, but the only thing she saves is herself. Dave asked about family. I said she was married, but I saw no signs of anyone else there. Then he asked if she was on Facebook. Out of curiosity, I Googled her and came to her Instagram and YouTube channels. I couldn't believe what I saw. She had 18,000 posts, each one a selfie of her purring at the camera, her ankle and her shoe, her earlobe and earring, her brushing her hair. A few were at the piano, but none of the videos were of her music. They were of her putting on makeup or holding up some scarves. Dave shook his head in disbelief after scrolling. Even the celebrity reels were less narcissistic, not to mention that many young starlets at least had something to show off. Luda takes pictures of herself, he said, to keep from disappearing. Thank you.
Wow. So tell us, Lorette, what inspired this piece?
So we were doing defense mechanisms, and we had talked about attachment styles, and I was thinking of my background. My mom was a hoarder, and so that kind of came into my mind as a defense mechanism. But then there's somebody that I saw on Instagram that I kind of know and has this habit that I tried to write out that I can't really make sense of. And it's something like that. So I kind of use the idea of hoarding oneself to play with and see where I could get going. And, you know, since we were sort of examining the psychology and personality of the psyche, I mean, I had Dave psychoanalyze her. So just some possibilities that might be, and kind of let my imagination take that where, well, I didn't want it to be a typical vanity situation in the story, at least to offer up other possibilities for what was going on there.
Thank you so much, Lorette. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Next up, we have Anastasia Wasko. Anastasia is a writer, editor, and transpersonal guide currently living in New Orleans, Louisiana. Her creative output is largely inspired by psychological processes and experiences of living in a pan-sentient universe. Wasko's fiction and creative nonfiction writing have appeared in Space Cowboys Simultaneous Times podcast and in Journal of Exceptional Experiences. Her most recent work of autofiction meta work was released in 2021. For more information, you can reach out to Anastasia on her website, anastasiawasko.com. Hello.
Hi.
Hello there.
I am going to be reading Venus in Antarctica.
All right.
I heard Marvin's laugh above the grating hairband rock music. I saw him scan the group of men and wink at each of them. Sweat gathers on his forehead. Who's going to go first today? A dozen Earthmen raised their hands. Yeah, Haas, pick me. You, he said, pointing toward the guy who has just arrived. And here we go. These guys are all the same. He points to himself, mouths the words, me, eyebrows arch, surprise, a dribble of saliva drips out, greedy anticipation. Marvin wipes the sweat from his wrinkled, yellowed forehead and looks at his watch. The new guy wears a name tag, Hank. He is straight off the teleporter from the sanitized mainland countries in the rest of the world. He's not sweaty and filthy yet. Hank grins. The group disperses from the two-way window, fading into their seats in the heated lounge. Hank stands next to Marvin as Marvin licks his palm and smooths a lock of curls. Together they approach the two-way glass, stand so close that their warm breaths fog around their mouth like a bottom feeder fish sucking on the side of an aquarium wall. They look at me like I'm not even there. My side of the two-way glass is ice cold and too bright from too many halogen track lights illuminating this 6x6 space. This neon vinyl baby doll dress doesn't help. I want to slide out and be in my true form, but I can't blow my cover. I need this human body. What these Earthmen don't know is that they built their little prison facility right over the neutrino irregularity. It's an intersolar portal. We women from Venus know it. We watch travel through the solar system. And we knew that if these Earthmen tried something, well, we'd step in. Hank stands close to the glass. 500, he says, his voice shaking. Well, aren't you cheap, Hank? What else have you got in you? Marvin winks again. He shoots a glance at me and then looks at his watch. Again. Hank reaches into his pocket and takes out the fantasy money he received when he arrived. He thumbs through the cheap paper and finds a drink card. I'll buy her a drink too, he says with a grin. Attaboy, Hank, Marvin cheers. The men in the lounge start to cheer too. The chorus in the rock band track wails something about knowing what love is. Working on the floor of the lounge are women from all over Earth, also wearing plastic vinyl mini dresses and high heels. They're prisoners too, taken at random and sent to this women's rehabilitation camp turned male fantasy land, AKA a prison. The air in the overheated, dimly lit, smoky lounge shimmers in the artificial light. The women, who've already been here some time, their skin is caked yellow with soot. Their double cherry-ass shaped prints leave impressions on the filthy bar where they stand and lean while waiting for orders. Bring on the surprise, Marvin belches. What? A whirring sound emerges from the wall behind me. I hadn't noticed before, but now I see that two skinny rails lay in the ice floor leading to a gray metal door. The halogen light reflects off this too, and as it opens, the prop seems much larger than it really is. A ball and chain rolls in. Marvin laughs. A selfie after tonight's speed dating rounds. It's just an extra 5 credits. Picture her like she's gonna be. I see he's sweating harder now. And remember, he adds, the girls in the lounge are up for grabs too. So get your ball and chain and get yourself a ball and chain selfie. The Earthmen cheer again, louder than the background music this time. I fume. How can they treat women like this? Why do they think we're a joke? I can't help myself. I depose. I slide up from the Earth body I had been possessing since I was deployed here from Venus. I rise like a bubble. I glow. Come on, guys, seriously? Is this what you call fun? My words come out, but they sound like I'm underwater. They can't hear me, so I scream. My shimmery yellow glass sparkles and blows out the halogen lights. Now it's dark on my side. The music stops on the other side of the two-way glass. I slide through the two-way mirror. Listen, I say, floating forward. Hank, right? I move toward him. My voice is piercing sharp, high-pitched, and deadly to this earthband's ears. It vibrates the entire room. The plastic tables and glasses shatter. Hank chitters his teeth hard. Blood trickles out of his ear. Broken tumblers spill the drinks that pool and mix with the peanut shells on the floor. The shells float in puddles of alcohol and tonic. Oh, did I blow your eardrum? Not sorry, slime. If a gal is gonna live her life, she can't stick around in this lousy place. Girls, I'm getting you out of here. I snap my fingers and the bodies of the other women serving in the lounge drop. A flash of light and the souls of the 7 servers were immediately transported to safety on Venus. The intersolar feminist guerrilla rescue mission is a success. I know. I was supposed to hang around and gather intel, but how could I? My temper is hot. There was a silence, and Hank loosens his necktie. He turns to Marvin. Hey, I get my money back, right? This is part of tonight's event, Marvin says through labored breath. This was a special planned event, he lies. I'm just doing my job. The rest of the men in the bar stare at each other. One of them pees himself. Marvin falls to his knees. Surprise, new act? Silence. Just give it up, I say as I float over all of them, out of there, past the neon sign that's hanging on the door. Speed dating tonight, girls for the saving. The neon sizzles and crackles. The men inside cup their ears and writhe in pain.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please tell me what inspired your piece.
Dating, being on dating apps. So feeling just like I, just had no value except for what, men had pictured me for. And then I turned to flash fiction because I think it was in the lesson when we were talking about attachment styles, and I had a very disassociative attachment style, and the characters don't really interact, but that lesson helped me explore this a little bit more because I realized that none of us are really talking to each other. We don't even really give each other a chance. And I realized even, we're all a little bit disassociated from each other. And so I wanted to have an outlet for that rage that comes with dating. But I also just wanted to do my own thing and not have to apologize for it. So that's why at the end, I just go out of body.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. So that was that. Participants of Flash Fiction Writing from the Subconscious. I'm really proud of that workshop, proud of that course, and proud of all the pieces, the awe-inspiring pieces. Thank you so much for coming tonight and for reading your pieces. I'm handing it over to Kelly now.
Thank you so much, Riham, and all the readers. It was wonderful to hear you all. And now we're going to hear, before we close tonight, a couple of readers that we have lined up for the open mic. I think there are two of them, and that includes Alexandra Sarapalu. I think that's how you pronounce it. And then Katia Hage. Is there anybody else who is signed up to read whose name I don't have? Please tell me right away in the chat room. For the moment, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Alexandra Sarapalu from Greece. And I've given you permission to share your screen, I believe, Alexandra. So whenever you're ready.
Thank you. I think Riham definitely looks wider awake than I do at 3:30 a.m. I think she's used to this. Okay, so that was really amazing. I thoroughly enjoyed all the pieces. I'm kind of in a unique niche of my own, which is visual poetry. I've always written words with images together. So can you see the graphics going by? Okay.
Yes.
So this is from the Flying series, Flying 11. When all I have is Earth sun warming my horizons. Sweet Psyche, tender wings fluttering anxiously. For it is the flight that matters, dragging my aging dreams. Persevering in all kinds of weather, reaching heights of Icarus, heights of the supreme. Each creation immortalizing mortality, keeping it alive. Creations blowing everywhere, through my eyelashes, through the skies. flames and eyelashes becoming one, scorching our weaknesses, guiding lost souls. When all I have is a dandelion pappus to blow, seeds floating through the vortex to the cerulean ethers, for it is the flight that matters, chasing my windy wishes, releasing the nails of mental prisons, drifting breaths of nature, breaths of freedom, each ideal golden energy sent into pure light, ideals blowing everywhere, through my heart, through the skies, zephyr and heart becoming one, subduing the ego to service the higher good. When all I have is efflorescence blooming in my garden, a farmer of senses cultivating the fruit of the gods. For it is the flight that matters, picking my deciduous emotions, turquoise showers reviving withered hopes, chanting priestesses of protection, priestesses of safekeeping, each inspiration soothing upheaval, melodious salvation, inspirations blowing everywhere through my mind, through the skies, incantations and mind becoming one, blessed with the power of flowing divine energy. When all I have is paper and pencil for some simple words, creating poetry between invisible gods and visible mortals. For it is the flight that matters, rekindling my courageous verse, grateful in defeat and victory, dressing ideas in armor, ideas in silk, each vision a sacred icon in my pilgrimage, visions blowing everywhere through my spirit, through the skies, matter and spirit becoming one, empowering our lives with universal fire. When all we have is the ray of a new dawn in a dewdrop, light triumphing, heralding a new beginning. For it is only the flight that matters. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Alexandra. And Katia, you are up, and I just want to mention that I haven't turned off the recording, so I need you to tell me before you go, Alexandra, and also Katia, if you don't want to be in the recording, I will snip that off at the very end. So I need to know if you want to agree to having your piece shown in the recording on YouTube. Katia, I was confused. I thought,
Me too.
yeah, so we get to hear you, because I thought, oh, we're not going to get to hear you, but here we are. So,
Yes, I am.
wonderful.
It's been a hectic 2 months, so I'm glad to be here.
Good,
So
but you are going to read, and we're glad that you're going to read. And just to say, I believe you are our final reader of the night, and then we will say a hearty and sad goodbye to everyone. So I'm assuming there's no one else here who signed up for the open mic. Katia, you're on.
Thank you. So my piece is called Muddy Ground. The hushed sounds of her boots step between loose rocks and dirt. Her laboring breath carries her up the face of the mountain. She sips water to moisten the dry air of a desert-like forest of stones, boulders, and trees. She still wonders how they can survive in this weather. Her thoughts play in her mind like a squirrel ever so agitated. Can it rest already and let the calm of the surroundings seep in? The climb opens up into the womb of the mountain where a stream flows to her left and deep, dark green moss crawls from everywhere to meet her arrival. Her weary boots make their way to the running water, and with a royal certainty lust after the continuous flow of life. She tries to bring sense to her feet, but they dive into the bed and seep into the brown, gooey, formless mud. The softness, the yielding, the coolness of the mud seeps into the seams and openings to reach socks and toes. The touch steals her back to a time tucked under her own scorched land. The moment of biting into a brown chocolate cake covered with a smooth mousse, the satisfaction rushing into her smile. The moment brown wet clay formed and unformed between her fingers, the excitement in her belly. The moment of funny noises born from stepping into soft ground in her dance among droplets of rain and the giggles at the mess created. She remembers. She remembers an existence unhindered by limits. She falls on her knees at the cue of the leaves around her. She digs her fingers in an earth, waiting to become. Thank you.
Thank you, Katia. Okay. Well, Riham, let's see. Why don't you unmute and you and I can wrap up this fabulous evening. Very moving, really dynamic. So wonderful to hear from you, Riham, from the work inspired in your class and beyond, and to hear the fascinating connections about how people were inspired by the coursework concepts that you offered. Riham, what do you want to share as your final word tonight?
Well, I just want to announce my upcoming workshop, upcoming class, Dreams, Fairy Tales, and the Tarot, Exploring the Self Using Flash Fiction Forms. I go a little bit in detail in terms of technique and flash forms, and I decided to delve more into the idea of metaphors and symbols. So we're exploring that in dreams, fairy tales, and we're going also to go into the tarot cards. The class starts in November, and the work flow and topics are going to be quite variable. I also want to thank everyone who showed up today and were brave enough to read their stories, because some of these stories come from a very personal space. And I'm very grateful for being able to teach this material with the TLAN. And special thank you to Kelly DuMar for collaborating on that beautiful evening, beautiful open mic. And I would really love to see you produce more work, everyone produce more work, and bringing out their emotions in the written word.
Riham, it's really fun to think about another showcase after your next class, for sure. So I hope that, I feel like this has been a success, a proven model. So let us hope that that we might also hear from you and make a lot of the craft, the beautiful stories available to other people after your November into December class. So I have put into the chat room again the link to sign up and get the early bird discount for Riham's class in November. And if you have the opportunity to make even a small donation now or soon to TLAN, we are a nonprofit and we have one staff member, and that was Hanne, and the rest of us contribute in all the ways that we can to keep wonderful courses like this and available, and the community really connected and available. So very moving. Thank you all. I agree, Riham, for all of you who took the risk to share in this beautiful space tonight. I will be letting Hanne know, and then she'll be letting you know when you can view the recording, and feel free to link to that recording to show your work to the world. So I look forward to seeing all of you, hearing more from you again soon.